All right, so today we have a clip here of Ben Shapiro attempting to call out Emma Vigeland for a position that he says she holds when it's not that at all, and he is literally just framing it in the most disingenuous way possible. Here's a clip of Ben Shapiro first.
And again, it makes you a good person to accept it. So, for example, there's a woman.
And this is Ben Shapiro responding to a New York Times op-ed that I do have pulled up here about Jordan Neely being killed. And the title of the New York Times op-ed is "Making People Uncomfortable Can Get You Killed." And we'll look at the op-ed in a second, but this is all a response to Jordan Neely's death.
Emma Vigeland, she's on the Majority Report, I guess, and she had a clip going viral today talking about how if you want to feel safe on public transit, this is bourgeois. And you have to suppress those bourgeois feelings. You have to make yourself feel okay about being abused on the public transportation system.
I was hit at one point sitting on the subway by a man who was having a mental health episode. He sat next to me and he was elbowing and kind of flailing around and hit me in the face and in my body. And it was jarring, right? The idea that I would want him to be hurt in any way, I just didn't want to be near him in that moment because I understood something was going on here. But like, my fear is not the primary object of like what we should be focusing on right now. It's the fact that this person is in pain. And so like the politics of dehumanization privileges the bourgeois kind of concern of people's like immediate discomfort in this narrow instance, as opposed to larger humanity and life. It's really freaking twisted.
Being beat up, being physically abused is now being part of the larger spectrum of humanity. Isn't that wonderful? You are expected by the hard left to now undergo being abused on the public transit system in order to create a more diverse and wonderful society. I mean, good luck with this pitch, guys. Seriously, good luck to you in all your future endeavors. Because let me tell you something that nobody likes. Right, left, center, being yelled at, beat up, assaulted on the subway system. Nobody likes that crap. Nobody's into it. So if this is the new idea, is that to be tolerant, diverse, and humane, you have to allow yourself to be abused by schizophrenic homeless people and drug addicts, then I wish you all the best.
So Ben Shapiro boils everything that Emma Vigeland said in those clips down to pretty much you just have to accept at this point in the world, because the world's gone so woke, it's so far left, that you just have to accept getting beat the fuck up, and he's saying abused. You have to accept just being abused by random people, homeless people. He even says people that are having mental health crises. But if you guys saw it, which maybe you missed it, but I just want to show you guys. He cut this clip just right in the middle of it, just straight up cut it.
I was hit at one point sitting on the subway by a man who was having a mental health episode. He sat next to me and he was elbowing and kind of flailing around and hit me in the face and in my body. And it was jarring, right? The idea that I would want him to be hurt in any way, I just didn't want to be near him in that moment because I understood something was going on here. But like, my fear is not the primary object of like what we should be focusing on right now.
And so you saw the cut, you saw the little stinger transition that he had play over the clip, and he didn't show you the whole clip. And we're not going to watch the entire segment here because they talked about it for almost 15 minutes on the program last week. But this is what she said leading up to that clip, and also that whole clip in its entirety, because when you look at it like that, it might come off a certain way. But again, people that are familiar with Emma Vigeland, he pronounced her name wrong. I don't even know how the fuck he got it wrong. But for those of you that are familiar with Emma, she doesn't just hold a position like you just have to accept getting beat the fuck up. That's just, again, like if I was a young child, I would believe Ben. Here's Emma explaining it, and we are going to speed this up for time purposes. So if she's talking fast, that's because the clip is sped up.
And Eric Adams responded to this. This is the same Eric Adams who has now cut, or he did this last year, cut services, or cut funds, I should say, to the city's Department of Homeless Services to the tune of $615 million.
That's true.
Last calendar year.
That's true.
So here he is responding to this story. This is his statement here. Any loss of life is tragic. There's a lot we don't know about what happened here. It's on video. So I'm going to refrain from commenting further. However, we do note there were serious mental health issues in play here, which is why our administration has made record investments in providing care to those who need it and getting people off of the streets and the subways and out of dangerous situations. Let me just now say, blah, 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 blah. And I need all elected officials and advocacy groups to join us in prioritizing getting people the care they need and not just allowing them to languish. What he does when he's referencing getting people out of those dangerous situations is he's referring to his program of involuntary hospitalization, where police have essentially, because there have been cuts to these mental health care services and homeless services, they have been dropping them off in the ER and letting essentially medical professionals just deal with this. If homeless people are, in cops' estimation, exhibiting signs of mental health issues, they are involuntarily detained and taken to the hospital. This is not a sustainable program. What we need is housing and healthcare in this city and in this country. And he's also at the same time militarizing the police in the city and increasing the number of cops in the subways. And I mean, these incidents are still happening. So what we really need is, again, housing and healthcare services. Kathy Hochul also responded here to a question about Neely's death, the governor. Here she is. Is she looking to the side this entire time? Okay. Very, very talented politician. I say that sarcastically because she.
And we're gonna fast forward through Kathy's part right here.
This is worse
because it's not important to the
Michelle
conversation.
Bachmann looking slightly into the other camera. She's literally at a 90-degree angle. All right.
Not aware of evidence of that, and once it came to light, we parted ways.
You saw the video of the man who was killed in the choke.
I mean, nothing about the victim. Nothing.
It's about how people are feeling in the sense of like
feeling a little bit uneasy. I mean, we've all been there. We have all three of us in this room have been there. Sorry, Matt, go ahead.
Because and just in case most of you that are clicking on this video probably know, but Emma, Sam, and all the majority of report crew, they all live in New York. The studio's in New York. I'm not sure which part of New York, but they all live in New York.
Just to outline the story for people, this is from the New York Post story, the original one, which is enough details where people shouldn't be morally confused about this, but he started screaming in an aggressive manner. He said he had no food, he had no drink, he was tired, and he doesn't care if he goes to jail. He started screaming all these things, took off his jacket, a black jacket that he had, and threw it on the ground. Now, like you said, I've seen this a lot of times in New York, which is not to say it should be immune to it. It's somebody basically desperate saying, I'm being socially murdered. I'm being murdered by society right now because I am not being cared for and I'm impoverished. And, like, we need to deal with that.
Yeah.
Like that thing, and of course, like, and instead of dealing with that sort of thing, we have this people like Hochul catering to fear, and to the point where this guy wasn't acting violent. He was yelling. And look, things happen where people do get violent out of desperation, and like that's why you don't let people get to this sort of broken, uncared for, left adrift by society condition that they're in. And then when you have politicians like Hochul saying like, oh, actually the thing is we need to make sure people don't be so afraid. Well, like no, like you have like contributed to this atmosphere of fear where a guy murders somebody who's yelling about how hungry and poor and desperate he is. And there's a few people on that camera who are like, I'm worried a little bit about his well-being. And then at one point, like there's another line from this New York Post story where he says, none of us thought he was in danger of dying. We thought he just passed out or ran out of air. And it's like, what is being run out of air? What is running out of air? Like, I can't imagine running out of air and it not being an emergency situation where I'm afraid for my life.
Well, this is, as you say, the result of a mass dehumanization campaign that politicians like Eric Adams and Kathy Hochul both fuel and feed into. And they'll never get credit for being as right-wing as they can be on homelessness or crime. And yet they still do it every time because, frankly, it's ideological for them. This is endemic with a lot of Democrats in blue states with large cities. They ride a wave of dehumanization of people who are struggling the most as much as possible. And so she doesn't even acknowledge Neely as a human being in that statement. She says, quote, there's consequences for behavior. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
So there's consequences for having a mental health episode in the form of death.
Yeah, and
execution, public execution by a subway rider.
And you know who actually should bear some of the result of these consequences is Kathy Hochul and Eric Adams. Not only politically because they're them contributing in not the crime wave, but the crime reporting and talking about crime.
Yeah, it causes a lot of fear. No, that's you.
You're causing the fear by continually maximizing these incidents as if they are happening constantly everywhere, and they are not. And then people, and that seeps into people's psyche and mindsets.
True,
to where a guy on the subway, this 24-year-old Marine, thinks it's incumbent upon himself to neutralize the threat, so to speak, by killing someone. By literally a guy saying, I'm starving, I'm thirsty, I have nowhere to go, I'd rather be in jail because I have nothing to live for, essentially.
Yeah.
I have nothing to live by. And our response as a society on that micro society in that subway car was to kill that guy and hold him down while he died.
He's exhibiting the symptoms of a sick society, and he is sick himself because of our society. And for that crime, for the crime of having symptoms, he's executed. And I'll just say this really quickly. I was hit at one point sitting on the subway by a man who was having a mental health episode. He sat next to me, and he was elbowing and kind of flailing around, and hit me in the face and in my body, and it was jarring, right? The idea that I would want him to be hurt in any way, I just didn't want to be near him in that moment because I understood something was going on here. Every one of us who's taken public transit has had this kind of situation, something similar happen, seeing someone struggling. that doesn't mean that our fear in that instance, and I was a little scared because I was hit.
It's a problem. Like, it's people that need help.
But like, my fear is not the primary object of like what we should be focusing on right now. It's the fact that this person is in pain. And so like the politics of dehumanization privileges the bourgeois kind of concern of people's like immediate discomfort in this narrow instance, as opposed to larger humanity and life. It's really freaking twisted.
Yeah, I just want to.
And then he reads part of an article from someone who was a detractor and wrote about the situation. Emma doesn't speak on it anymore for the rest of the clip, and then they go to a short little break. But you guys heard it. You heard exactly what Emma said there. She even admitted to being scared, something Ben Shapiro conveniently cut out of the clip. And she also was criticizing Mayor Eric Adams, who's a Democrat, very harshly there, when I think rightfully so. But Ben Shapiro also left that part out of the clip he played, which I think is more interesting than him leaving out the part where she said she was scared, because, you know, he's framing Emma as this, you know, she's so leftist. I don't even know. I don't even know what the most disingenuous way you could pick out part of that clip and play it was what Ben Shapiro did. Absolutely horrible. But just so you guys can see it, because I do think it's important to show. This is the op-ed that the New York Times published by Roxane Gay, and it's really nothing too. There's nothing wrong with this op-ed. I'll read the first paragraph here, and then you guys, I encourage you guys to go and read it, because I actually didn't think it was that bad. Sometimes I find myself on the fence with a lot of New York Times op-eds, but increasingly it is not safe to be in public, to be human, to be fallible. I'm not quoting breathless journalism about rising crime or conservative talking points about America falling into ruin. The ruin I'm thinking of isn't in San Francisco or Chicago or at the southern border. The ruin is woven into the fabric of America. It's seeping into all of us, all across the country. Supposedly good, upstanding citizens are often fatally enforcing ever-changing, arbitrary, and personal norms for how we conduct ourselves. And, you know, again, Ben Shapiro, and all conservatives, they cherry-pick these really specific things. They pick a clip from the Majority Report that's literally a live show. It's not like my videos I make where sometimes I cut stuff out and stuff. And he cuts it down, and he takes out the parts that, you know, would make his argument invalid, that would make his argument, you know, not even an argument. He takes those parts out. He cherry picks statistics. All the conservatives do this. All Republican media does this. Again, it's because to do the Republican grift, you can't actually report on facts. You can't actually show what is really going on. You can't show real statistics or show all the statistics. You can't show an entire clip of someone like Emma Vigeland talking, because showing the entire clip would just, again, make the entire Republican grift that Ben Shapiro is trying to do fly right out the fucking window. But that's going to be it for the video. If you guys like the video, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, press that little bell, and turn on all notifications so you guys never miss an upload.